Hello there, and welcome. Oh, wait, hold on. No, we don't do that part yet. Hi there, I'm Air, and I use he, him.
I'm Leap, and I use he, him too.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom. And it is all Canucks all the time. Welcome to the frozen north, motherfuckers. You are in for a chilly ride.
Sit on your Chesterfield and put on your toque, my buddies, because we are about to have an episode. New do to boot it. I don't know where our American friends are, but they let the
grab your nearest moose and or beaver and cuddle up as we bring you Canuck Check.
Canuck Check. Oh my goodness. They did not expect this. They never thought that they would let two completely different people
like this is the proof. This is the proof that Lon, our friends, and perhaps the Insight Check pod community at large have waited for. All right, Leap, I'm going to sing a note, you sing a note, and then there's no way we can be one person.
Okay, let's
see. 3, 2, 1.
Nice. That was
there you go.
That was good.
No human being can do that on their own.
And in our chat, we have a drunk Haley who's trying to make us extend our vowels. I don't. Hello. Oh yeah, eh? Don't ya know?
Don't ya know? Lord Tundra Jesus, buddy. That's a little East Coast for you.
I didn't know this, and we will get to real Dungeons and Dragons stuff first, but two Canadians have to talk Canadian for a minute.
Just a second.
Just for a sec. I'll apologize to our American friends because they expect us to.
Just a minute. Yeah.
I didn't know, like I was talking to some people, like small folk people, and they were talking about like, it's clear that there are different dialects in the States, and a bunch of our cast members have different dialects because Ooze is from the South, and that's very evident, and Haley's near Boston, and just all of that stuff.
Yep.
And I said the dumb thing of being like, well, you know, like, I don't really feel like Air or I have that standard Canadian accent. And they were like, no, Air's good. You, on the other hand, you sound as Canadian as Get Out. And it turns out.
Yeah, I've done that. I had Haley like check me. I'm like, do I have a Canadian accent, Haley? Do I? I don't know if good is the moniker.
I assume they're good. I don't know. It's the only one that we have.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, we got that East Coast. Oh, it's these 3 sheets to the wind by.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. That's too many of my family gatherings that I just said right there.
I love it. I love it. Welcome, friends. There's just 2 of us. It is a very different kind of a pod today. Haley is drinking. I'm reading the chat. She is drinking my favorite kind of drink called a Radler. If you haven't, so good. It was weird, Air. Like, this is another weird thing. Americans, if you don't know what this is, it is like a beer mixed with a soda, like citrus
fruit, normally lemon. Yeah, so good.
They're sweet, and we up in Ontario at least have them everywhere. And I really recommend you find them if you are someone who imbibes alcohol. If you're my son, Douglas, you are 7 months old. How are you listening to this? And you're not allowed to drink yet. Not yet, my friend. I'm sorry.
Once you hit 8-9 months, we'll talk about it. You can have a sip of Dad's. But,
yeah, exactly.
I went to Munich for a conference, and my wife came along, and then we kind of traveled around Munich, South Germany.
Yeah.
And that's where I first had Rodler, and I was like, what is this amazingly refreshing beverage of the gods?
Oh.
Like, how have you invented this? Because we were there in like the middle of summer, and it was, decently hot for Germany, and we just drank them by the, like, it's not even a pint, like the Stein, they give you a glass the size of your head full of it. And yes,
I just want
so
that.
Good.
That is heaven to me right now. We've now entered Radler Check, by the way, where we delve into the Steins of your bad decisions and retrieve the Radlers within, I guess.
Inebriation check.
Yeah. But so we will get back to this. We'll do a quick dungeon crawl, I guess. And since Jay's not... Dungeon crawl. Yeah. My dungeon crawl for this is actually a conversation, Air, you and I were just having before we got onto the pod. We were talking about warlocks and the plus and minus of multi-classing with them. So the story behind this, good listener, is I might be able to be joining an in-person, like a very rare but in-person campaign with a long-standing group of friends, and I just want to play a warlock. My best friend is a gigantic min-maxer, and he just loves that kind of strategy of the game. And so he came out pretty flatly and said, warlocks are only good if you multi-class with them. And so Aaron and I were just talking about the plus and minuses of that. And so I don't know, Aaron, if you want to like basically just say what you were thinking.
I think it's a debate that Jay and I have had, or kind of a conversation we've talked out before. Just those, you know, I think that 5e was really predicated on the thinking of 4e, and when they codified what, you know, on 4e, you just got your encounter powers back when the encounter was over. Well, they codified that by making it an actual amount of time, by making it an hour, by making it a short rest to get those things back. That was kind of the assumption in the kind of gamification of 4e systems, where your encounter powers are back because you've had some rest in between, you know, fight A and B. But in 5e, now that there's a narrative element to it, almost now that there's like a time frame around which that short rest happens, I think there's a lot less of a desire to have them unless they're absolutely necessary, because people are always thinking, well, this is like making camp, like we're just giving the DM a chance to spring a random encounter on us, like let's just keep moving. And so if you don't get that short rest as a warlock, you are just in all kinds of trouble, because I think it really presupposes you will have your, you know, for most of your career, 2, you know, whatever leveled up to 5th spells ready to rock. And if you don't have them, like Eldritch Blast it is.
Yeah. And something that we were just talking about that was really very insightful was like, the thing that I said was that like, well, maybe one of the plus minuses is that like a lot of their spells are long lasting. They're combat long spells, right? So theoretically you could drop it and do a substantial amount of damage or a lot of crowd control and really affect the movement and the impact of things. But then you said, but it's all concentration checks, right? So you're like, if all of a sudden the DM pings you and you lose that check, then there is like a massive amount of your economy that's gone. I'm not a player who multi-classes often. For some reason, I really like the lore and like the role play element of like a single class. And so I was looking for like a thematic and also like a mechanical justification for staying a warlock. And the one that comes to mind is just as you level, continuing to get those Eldritch invocations, right? Because those are just like free spells, usually out of combat spells, but like free things that you can do that are still impactful that you wouldn't necessarily have if you did 3 levels of sorcerer or 3 levels of paladin or something like that, you know?
Absolutely. Like having the ability to disguise self at will or detect magic at will. Just it's super useful in an RP component, or like social interactions, encounters, all super useful to have those kind of things rocking and rolling. I think where it comes from is like the combat focus of 5e. You know, it's still got a lot of war game in there, so people are worrying about it. And the fact that warlocks just really multi-class well with a ton of different other things, that it just feels like they just fit in that groove so well. Why wouldn't you just slot them right in there? But you know, you do you, man. You live it up. You live that warlock life.
Man, you and my buddy Steve have to sit down, because like I think you guys would just you would agree with a lot of those kind of decisions. And if both of your brains got together in creating a character, I would be very, very worried about trying to run anything against that character. Like that is,
oh God,
that's just the worry of mine, right? Like,
throw Jay in there and we will create like the solution, the mathematical solution to 5e.
Yeah, exactly.
The monster. No, it doesn't.
No.
What do you mean? Trust me, it doesn't. we do this, and this, and it doesn't do that. Oh.
Okay. It's the end game. It's D&D end game, right?
Yes. Yeah.
My listening friends, though, we are here to do a roll call, though.
Roll call. Bum, 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 bum. That is very impressive. That was some scat level mouth horn. Like, bravo, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I bow for the podcast because no one's in my house with me. So we are going to be talking about one of the most classic archetypes in Dungeons and Dragons. We are going to be talking about the rogue. This is not one that we've talked about on the podcast before, but it is like every party, it seems, in Dungeons and Dragons has a rogue. Like, you'll go into games that won't have certain classes, but it always seems that someone is playing one, right? So it seemed like an interesting thing to talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, they go all the way back to first edition. They are a classic staple of D&D, of just the fantasy genre as well. That sneaky, quick-fingered, stabby character kind of lurking in the shadows. And 5e's done a great job of capturing that. You've got a lot of features that the class kind of has classically been associated with. They get expertise, so they have double proficiency in some of their skills. They have the classic sneak attack, which is your kind of stab them in the back when they aren't looking, classic thing. Thieves can't. They get to, do the Ocean's 11, quick talk thing where only other thieves can understand it. And just a whole bunch of other things that are just all about like slipping out of danger and just being super talented at whatever they want to do. And, we can talk about all of the various archetypes that are in there. But all in all, if you're looking to play kind of the skill monkey martial character or something within that vein, there's lots of different flavors of it. The rogue is for you.
Mm-hmm. And like, that's what I really like about the class, is that there is a niche that it fits that no other character really does. You have a bunch of big, bulky fighting classes that play this way, but the rogue really is that nimble, moving around fighter. And I really got to give it to Wizards, is that they've created archetypes that let you play in different ways. Well, I guess the monk is also that kind of fighter, but in like its whole other unarmed combat, like their flavor is different enough, right? Like, because if you like that, almost like that really just deadly from the shadows, get that really gigantic hit in, then you have the assassin who's like damage, if on a surprise round, is absolutely insane. If my buddy is playing a swashbuckler and air, you said that you were going to be playing a swashbuckler too, and their whole bit is movement, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about kind of getting in, attacking the opponent and then dancing away. They can kind of get in, do some stabs, and then just freely disengage and turn and run.
Mm-hmm. You have like those two archetypes, especially, that are very combat focused, like the that can really let you do a lot of cool things. But then also you have like the thief, which is the best person for skills, right? The skill monkey of skill monkeys, right? Like
the skill monkey of skill monkeys. Yeah. They have tons of like, they can do things like pick your pocket on a bonus action. So they could walk up, stab you, rob you, and then run away.
Oh,
like,
man,
it's just some classic thief bullshit. Able to, climb super well. They got the Spider-Man thing, super sneaky. They've even got some of that old school flavor where they can use like any magical item, regardless of like if it has class or race or level requirements.
Yeah.
They just get to use it. So they find some like ludicrous high level, 20th level dwarf paladin sword. And they're like, no, this is mine. It's fine. I can do it.
And like, that's at level 13. And I mean, depending on your game, that is pretty far down in movement. But then like at level 13, if you have someone who can activate and use any magical device that you have, regardless, that person becomes incredibly powerful, right? Like any scroll is usable. Any device is usable. Like that person just become like that rogue. I feel like that's a huge bump for the thief.
I would love to see like there be an elf and a dwarf in the party and a belt of dwarven kind drops, and the elf thief rogue gets to wear it, and the dwarf is just like, "Oh fuck you!" Like,
yeah. You know what? In my home campaign right now that I play, we just we all bought belts of dwarven kind, and like our DM was basically like, "Yeah, you can all wear them," and we're like,
"Oh what? Wow, awesome!"
Yeah, and we're like, "Hey, it says that sometimes you get a beard. Can we just all have beards?" And then he's like, "Fuck it, yeah, of course you can all just have beards." And we're like, "Yeah!" So like, there's like, I'm an elf with a beard. There's like halfling with a beard, like half down his belly. Like, it's just, that was the thing that made us more excited than anything else at this point in time.
I want to say that's probably the greatest bit of flavor text on an item in all of 5e is the beard on the belt of dwarven kind.
I love it.
And then, just getting back into it, like if you want to have, like, if you're trying to kind of mix in some of the other classes, like a lot of the subclasses have a lot of feel from other classes built in, so you don't have to necessarily go multi-classing. Like the Arcane Trickster gives you some wizard spells and a bunch of ways that, a kind of sneaky, thiefy character would use magic to amplify their kind of roguey ways. I know we had an Arcane Trickster in the previous campaign that we played with, and she constantly used I think it's called Mage Hand Legerdemain.
Okay.
Which is basically your Mage Hand cantrip becomes invisible.
Oh.
And she had proficiency in sleight of hand, so she could just basically steal whatever she wanted from me from like 30 feet away, and just did it constantly.
Yeah, I've got it open right now. So starting at 3rd level, when you cast Mage Hand, you can make the spectral hand invisible, and you can perform the following actions. So you can stow an object in a container, you can retrieve an object, you can use thieves' tools to pick a lock, and you can perform one of these tasks without being noticed by a creature. If you succeed a successful dexterity sleight of hand check, right? Against the person's wisdom or perception check. Yeah. And you can use it as a bonus action granted by your cunning action. So like that on its own is ridiculous, right? Like you can imagine if you have someone who has the perception to see a trap down the way, right? And your rogue can then time, like if there's like a moving patrol, right? First off, your rogue can spring the trap, no problem, from afar. But if there's like a moving patrol and your rogue can sneakily watch until the patrol passes and springs the trap as the patrol passes from afar, that is cool, right? Like that is just a cool thing that someone could do.
Like I would do things where like I would get the killing blow on a thing, I would search the body, I would get a healing potion, and then, you would go attack or something and be like, and as my bonus action, I go and take that healing potion from his bag. I need it more than he does. I'm frontline. Like, anyway. Yeah, it was, and it just played into that excellent, sneaky, shadowy person. And then they've got other options like the Scout, which is kind of a ranger rogue kind of mashup.
I'm reading this for the first time right now, and it is really, really cool. Do you mind if I read just like the flavor text right now?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you are skilled in stealth and surviving far from the streets of a city, allowing you to scout ahead of your companions during expeditions. Rogues who embrace this archetype are home in the wilderness and among barbarians and rangers. So yeah, if you're doing that like wild kind of campaign like I know that sometimes in our games, buddies, like you want to be friends with your buddy, but your buddy's a barbarian and you're a rogue, right? Like, so this is a way that you could do that. You could be from the same place. They serve as ears and eyes to war bands. Yeah, it's like that forward in the woods kind of. I almost think like scouts from the war. Yeah, I'm reading their abilities too, and it's cool. Like at 3rd level, you're difficult to pin down. Like you can move half to your speed as a reaction when enemy ends its turn. And in its survivalist, so at 3rd level, you get proficiency in nature and survival checks if you don't already have it, so that's cool as well.
Makes sense, very rangery.
Yeah, which is just also a kind of a cool, like I'm a role plays part. I like role play more than combat. Like I really like combat, but role play is what keeps me in the game. So that is just neat, right? Giving that person the skills to do things that might bring a player to this subclass, right? At ninth, your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Okay, so yeah, so you have a climbing and swimming speed, so it just lets you get around a little bit better. And at 13, you have advantage on initiative rolls. That's amazing. In addition, the first creature you hit during the first round of combat becomes easier for you to hit and others to strike. So the first person you hit, everyone gets advantage on until the start of your next turn.
It's like a guiding bolt that just keeps on going for a whole round.
Yeah.
If you kind of get off the shot first. Yeah.
That's dope, right? Like that's like that just for some people like rogues because it's like a strategy play, and that's a really neat tool if you wanted to do something different than like the classic 3 archetypes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is some of the stuff that was coming out of I think Sword Coast Adventurers Guide and Xanathar's, where a lot of these options came from. But yeah, it's definitely a very different take on the rogue, but still kind of within the vein of that kind of survivalist thing. And the last two are kind of what I think of as two sides of the same coin. You have the Inquisitive and the Mastermind. And the best analogy I've seen for these is the Inquisitive is your Sherlock Holmes and the Mastermind is your Moriarty.
Oh.
They have a lot of like being able to, so the Inquisitive is all about being able to like spot people who are being dodgy, have really good insight, or be able to like just kind of size up the opponent in the middle of combat and be able to get your sneak attack just from like watching their movements and know exactly where they're going to leave like their flank open in just a second or something like that. There's some really cool detective-y kind of skills in the Inquisitive, and the Mastermind is all about tactics and manipulation and things like that. They have a lot of like skills for like misdirecting opponents. So like an attack that targets you instead targets someone else because you've tricked them into shooting their friend or whatever. Very, very manipulator like.
Yeah, I'm reading these right now, and that is just a really apt way of describing them. And now I want to play in a game where you have a rogue who's an Inquisitive and a rogue who's a Mastermind, right? Like,
and have them just fight, have them constantly be like one-upping each other in terms of their like intellectual capacity or whatnot.
Oh, I would like that. I would like that very much. From a roleplay perspective, I think that the rogue comes into, like we've talked about the niches a little bit, but this classic one is the like underbelly of crime or that like gang affiliation. There's just that part of a storyline that that other characters don't hit on necessarily as well. And I always think that the thing that I think is a really, really cool thing that people can play on if they and their dungeon master wants to is Thieves' Cant, right? Like I think that that's just a really neat mechanic that depending on how deeply you and the person running your game want to run on, like you could do some really neat things with that.
Absolutely. One of my favorite, I remember reading the Rogue back when I read the 4 kind of core classes when I was just playing out of the free rules when I first got started with D&D, and I saw A Shady Living as a title. And I was like, that just perfectly captures everything you think about this class. It's 2 little paragraphs that just talk about, like, even the second sentences, most of them live up to the worst stereotypes of the class, making living as burglars, assassins, cut purses, and con artists. Like,
oh yeah,
it so well summarizes that kind of seedy underbelly street urchin type character. So we have a question from Big Moo 1952. Posted on our D&D, which is, I've never played a rogue before. I'm giving serious consideration to playing one in a new 5e campaign, which we're about to start. Any helpful hints or thoughts for me as I sit down and prepare to create/play a rogue? So what do we think are some of like the core things that you should really know about playing a rogue before you jump in? And there's definitely some quality answers in this thread as well, but I wanted to throw it to you, Leap. Kind of, what do you think people should know about playing a rogue?
I think that the first thing that you want to know when playing a rogue is how like think about what you want to do as that rogue, right? Because like we just talked about with all of the archetypes, depending on how you want to spend your time and will lead you one way or another, right? If you're someone like, yeah, I imagine myself from being in the shadows and like that whole like knife out of the darkness, there's that archetype for you, right? Or I want to be that thief. I want to steal things. I want to have my hands in all of those pockets. I think thinking about how you envision your character and the things that you like to do or you want that character to do will help you kind of find that path. Understanding stealth is like a really important thing to note, like, because you can't just disappear in the middle of a lighted room, right?
Yes.
Like I
do the hide. I get a 24. What are you behind?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
You're in the middle of a room where there's a table and a lantern. What are you hiding behind, man? Like, so
I think this really gets to kind of the point of like the stealth rules are not super like detailed, and that was definitely by design in 5e, but I know a lot of people had questions about them. But really, like rogues who have cunning action, one of the things they can do with their bonus action is hide, which is super useful because if you attack from a hidden position, it gives you advantage, which guarantees your sneak attack going off. Super useful. But the rules for hiding is you have to be I think partially obscured or heavily obscured. It all comes down to like lighting and whatnot. Like you actually have to kind of cross-reference across different parts of the book to really like figure out how stealth works. But it is so core to the class to be able to attack from advantage and get sneak attack that getting it locked down is very important. And it is not just like, you know, it's not the I disappear into the shadows. It's like you got into a hidden position without anyone noticing you get there.
Totally.
So that when they turn around, they don't know where the shot came from, kind of thing.
And so like, and moving on that, I think there's also a good conversation to have with your DM about how, not necessarily how lenient, but how they envision these rules, right? Because if you're both really creative people and you enjoy that kind of complexity of thought and that strategy of being like, okay, I am in a bar, how am I going to get my stealth in? Then there's a story arc there, right? Like there is a thing that can become an interesting part of combat and makes it richer, being like, well, I'm going to try and jump under a table, and then when no one's looking, I'm going to try and stab them through the knee, right? And then then you can get a stealth check as you go, right? Or like make a distraction and then jump. But if you kind of come to your DM and you're like, look, this is what I want to do, and they're a little bit more lenient on it, then you know that it's not going to become an argument later. And if they aren't, if they are like, no, you need to be able to show that you're partially obscured, then you want to be a halfling, right? Like, because a halfling can just do that. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It definitely gets into the conversation around like things to think about when making a rogue. Obviously, play whatever race you want, whatever one speaks to you. Lead in with it. But if you're looking for ones that are maybe in some ways optimized, or at least play very well with the things that a rogue would be looking for, a halfling, for example, gets a plus to dex, which is super useful for them. But they have a skill, I believe the Lightfoot halfling.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, has naturally stealthy. You can attempt to hide even when you're obscured only by a creature that is at least one size larger than you. So in the first campaign I ever played in, which I DM'd in, we had a halfling rogue, and he constantly hid behind the fighter. Because the fighter was a human and was bigger than him. So he just kind of duck out from behind his calf, shoot his crossbow, and then duck back. And that was absolutely a valid tactic.
And you know what? I shouldn't have, like, thank you for saying the like, play whoever you want to play, because I really do firmly believe that. And the halfling lets you not necessarily, like, if this is new and you're worried about learning a class, like you just want to play something that's sneaky and fun, but you don't want to worry about the mechanics of stealth as much. They do let you hide behind your bigger friends. And the nice thing is they also have halfling nimbleness, which lets you move through those spaces of larger friends too. So you can literally hide behind the fighter and then pop out under his legs to do a stabby stab, right? Which has benefit.
Oh, absolutely. And like there's other things like the wood elves, which get Mask of the Wild. So like you can you are considered lightly obscured and thus can make an attempt to hide by like foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, or other natural phenomena. So if you're a rogue, like say an arcane trickster, you summon up a fog cloud and now you can just, slip into the fog and disappear.
Man, that's
kind of
good.
Thing. That said, if you want to be an orc rogue, go for it.
Yeah.
If you just that has a ton of super fun. I'm playing a half orc rogue right now, and he's super fun. He's not the brightest boy, but boy does he like to stab.
So why did you pick the half orc rogue? Was it because of the character you wanted to play, or like what was the deal there?
Well, because I'm a filthy min-maxer, I always start with something conceptual. I mentioned this on the episode we did with Drunk Fido, but I figured out that you could get sneak attack twice in a round by mixing barbarian, the berserker barbarian with the rogue. so I started with that being like, ooh, 2 sneak attacks. That's cool. And then I was like, well, what do I want to play? So, okay, I've taken a half orc for this, that, and the other thing. And I was inspired by Grog from Critical Role. I just wanted to get the chance to play dumb for humor's sake. Also, some things that will come up, I'm sure, in my character development. I don't want to spoil it. I know the players listen to this podcast. Hell, some of them are on it. But that was kind of the go-to. I'm hoping it's playing out well. I hear a giggle or two sometimes. So
no, that's awesome. I love it. And I forgot you told me about. I'd heard your amazing abilities, and I should have known when I asked the question, but it's fantastic. What do you think? So like stealth, I think, is a big one. Understanding, like when you, just like any class though, like when you pick your archetype, like having a good understanding of how that's going to work within, like if it's combat or if it's RP, right? Like where you want to play that. But what do you think is really important to know when it comes to jumping into a rogue?
You're going to get expertise right off the hop, and it would be a good idea to get a sense of like, what does the rest of the party have? Because this is going to be your chance to really fill in gaps, like better than anyone else. If they don't have like a party face, someone to like smooth talk, an NPC tavern owner, like you can have expertise in persuasion, and you can have like, I think, any like a +7 to persuasion or something like that, like at level 1. Which is a huge bonus. So if you're trying to get into an RP situation where you're trying to talk your way out of stuff, that's a whole, or if you don't have anyone who's going to be the spotter, who's going to walk into a room and be like, is anything in here going to kill me? You can, perception or investigation, really trying to figure out like, what are the strengths of the party so that you can kind of fill that niche as like the skill monkey du jour, the skill monkey primo.
Entirely. I think something as well to think about combat wise is like, does your party need you up front, or are you going to be shooting from a distance? Because if you have a single tank and you need to be up at the front to either off tank or take damage, or you just like that mentality of like going in and stabbing, that's going to change the weapons that you're looking for. That's going to change the feats or ASIs that you take. That's just going to change like the way that you play. But if you are a rogue that prefers to be working from like the shadows with a crossbow, then there are some very excellent feats that you can take to let you do a lot of damage in that capacity as well. Like crossbow expert comes to mind immediately, right?
Sharpshooter. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Like, and then all of a sudden you become like, you can be very deadly right behind someone, and you can also be very deadly from afar. And that is not always the case with any class. So kind of figuring out what kind of rogue you want to be in that capacity will just let you know what you need to invest in the future to have the kind of fun that you want in combat.
I think that pretty well answers that question. I'm wondering if we want to go on to the next one.
Yes, I definitely do.
So the next question, again coming to us from RD&D, asked by Oxfords and T, is that they are relatively new to playing. They're playing a level 3 rogue right now, and they're asking about multi-classing. Now, I think this is a question from a new player because they're like, well, this 20th level stroke of luck ability, if I multi-class, I won't get it. How beneficial is it in late game? And I want to be like, if you get to 20th level, my dear friend, congratulations, you like lucked into the best first time campaign ever.
Yeah,
I have never played at 20th level.
Oh man, that would be so nice.
You know, and I get it, like, it's because stuff just starts getting wonky up at that level. Like, you have powers that are just great, like even the one that they are talking about right now. I mean, in some of them, it really depends on class, because this one isn't too wild, but Stroke of Luck is you have an uncanny knack for succeeding when you need to. If your attack misses a target within range, you can just turn the miss into a hit. Or if you fail an ability check, you just naturally roll a 20 instead.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're just good at everything.
Amazing.
You're amazing at everything, right? Like,
yeah. Like that's the kind of like thing where it's like, I just choose to be awesome is kind of what like level 20 abilities tend to, or at least a level 20th character tends to be. It's just, I just do awesome all the time. It's like, why even roll the dice?
Oh yeah. And I mean, like, and we've talked about this in the past, but like level 20, you're like God level human, right? You are the Avenger. And so hopefully those final things show you that, but you're in a hell of a campaign if you are seeing that down the road. I think I want to hear your thoughts, because I can immediately think of a couple interesting ways that a rogue could multi-class, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm playing a what I intend to be a barbarian rogue fighter multi-class currently. That's kind of the end game plan for him. So like, there's definitely a lot of the other martial classes work really, really well with rogue, particularly because rogues only really need dexterity and con, because everyone needs con. So as long as you're picking up any other class that keys off those two ability scores, which so many do, fighters can, barbarians do, in so far as they like need dexterity for their armor class, monks even as well. There's a lot of great synergy there. Like a shadow monk assassin rogue would be terrible. Like you're super ninja. Yeah,
you are a ninja. Yeah. Like that's insane. I immediately thought of fighters because of Second Wind, right? Like I feel like that ability in itself, like especially when you get into higher levels, when sneak attack damage becomes like just insanely good, right? Just popping down into just a couple levels of fighter, all of a sudden in a peak moment, you could sneak attack twice. Like say you're an assassin. Okay, imagine this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're an assassin rogue, right? So you are getting your surprise round, and so you're doing max damage on your sneak attack, and you're second winding it, so you're getting that max damage twice, right?
I think you'd be right. Yeah, like if you were doing like action surge as a fighter, you could use your action surge to do an attack and get sneak attack. Ready. This is basically what I'm doing with my character. Ready your action for somebody else's turn to be like, as soon as Bob tries to start casting a spell, I'm going to stab the guy again. And because it's still a surprise round, as long as Bob is in that surprise round, Bob the Wizard, you know, our great arcane caster.
Yeah, Bob. Man.
Bob, he's amazing. What about Bob? I think you could do that, and that would be devastating.
Yeah, and I apologize to listeners. I was meaning action surge instead of second wind. I got my terms wrong in front of me.
No worries, sir.
But yeah, like I think that would be an insane amount of damage. And also, you know, having that little pop of healing that the real second wind provides. is also kind of useful. But I don't think magic works as well for the rogue. Like if you want that, you're going arcane trickster anyways. So do you think that like an arcane trickster rogue would benefit from popping into wizard, for example?
I think the biggest issue with rogue, and it piles up on a lot of different classes. The core class mechanics are normally designed to scale with the class. So the more you drift away from rogue, the more you're losing out on damage on your sneak attack.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like, and there's not a lot of other things to compensate in that being your main thing that you do in a fight to do damage. You're moving more towards spells if you go wizard, but it's not of options there to make the stabbing all that much better. I mean, there certainly are, like you can get Shadow Blade and that does great damage too. I think there would definitely be options. I just don't know if it would be as useful as the martial classes. I'd have to play around with it. It could very well be super useful.
For sure. Well, our listeners, and I'm going to call out Matty Jacks on this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, Matt's going to tell me exactly how he's going to have one built in our campaign and be like, see, air, see.
Yeah, exactly. So our good listeners, if you can find that disgustingly powerful rogue caster combination, tweet us, at us, and make us sad with how incredible this thing is. Because I think that would be really cool to know. I think though, like we were talking, like I think the rogue is an incredible class to play on its own. I think it is a completely rounded class and it definitely can benefit from multi-classing. But I don't think it's a necessity. I think you'll get an incredible playing experience from playing into a rogue and just continuing that way.
Absolutely. The multi-classing is an optional rule because the core classes and all the options therein are definitely more than enough.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk? We're doing good on time, man. But do you want to talk about pets?
Is there ever a time I don't? The answer is no. Yeah. Let's go.
All right, lay it on me.
Yeah, this question, again, coming from RD&D, from Cinerame. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Cinerame, get at me if it's wrong.
I want to see. I'll give it...
Sinorame. Yeah, Sinorame, yeah. Sweet old Sinorame. Fading Southern Belle.
I do declare. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Part-time DM, long-term player here. I'm in a campaign that my best friend is running. I'm playing a tiefling rogue. Blah, blah, blah. Something for dex. Lots of stealth. I think it would be great if I had a stealthy pet because the DM is offering us pets as an option. What kind of pets would you be suggesting for a rogue? And so I had already had an idea about what pet might be fun just from like looking through all the things that Find Familiar does. I was thinking owls, and then immediately all the first few suggestions were owl.
Yeah.
They have good stealth, they have dark vision, and they have an ability called flyby, which means that they don't provoke opportunity attacks when they run away. So you can have your owl friend go over and like distract to give you advantage by them helping.
Oh man.
Then you pop off a shot, then they fly back to you and they don't get swiped at by the bad guy.
That is the thing that makes them like the astounding rogue pet, right? Because then all of a sudden you're popping off on combos with your pet. I have found a thing that will not give you the ideal stealthy pet, but will give you a hilarious pet. And I think I was finding it, and I've linked it in our cast chatter. It is dndspeak.com, and it looks like they make lists. It's the official D100 website, according to them. Who am I to judge? And I found there 100 familiars / pets, and there's just a generate familiar button, and I'm going to press it right now. And I will now get a silver sphere the size of a juggling ball. It can roll around and jump short distances and can detect the presence of an intellect and magic and acts accordingly. So this looks like a dope DM. Like this would be more of a DM thing, I guess, but I want to play with this now because I'm hitting it again, and it says a chihuahua with a lion's soul trapped in its body.
So a Chihuahua then.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is amazing. We will be linking this on Twitter in short order. This is amazing. And that last one you mentioned was basically like one of the subclasses for the Artificer that they recently put out. So this thing is like ahead of the curve.
Right. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. I'm hitting it one more time. A small palm-sized cube slime. Oh, good. Can be placed in any room and will relay what has been spoken when the owner holds it. So it's spoken through telepathy. It must be fed small rodents and insects daily or will dissolve. So this is all like someone has put these together. You would have to run any of this. So this is like a DM would be able to use this. And if you're a player and you see something that you really like in this, you would obviously have to run it through your DM. But this just is flavor country for me. I love this.
This is so good. I just got a penguin. It may not be hiding an egg between its legs. The egg may or may not also produce a penguin.
This is
a squirrel with naturally occurring plates of bio armor, such as a pangolin. Okay, yeah. There's some very good options in here. A magical sentient brick. It's essentially a telepathic pet rock.
Oh my God.
Great.
This is great. I got a call out to Ascanius because him and I tweeted like months ago about interesting pets. And like we were just making crap up, and this is better than anything that we came up with. Ascanius came up, Eric Alloway came up with some amazing stuff. But like there's, I had to reread this. I'm going to do my best. A fustercluck. A rooster with a comically large wattle and tail feathers. The cosmic rules governing reality tend to bend near this strange creature, resulting in things going terribly, horribly, implausibly wrong for a creature nearby. This is astounding.
Oh, D&D Speak appears to be on Twitter too. I'll have to make sure that's them. But yeah, this is astounding. I also had one that was like a clockwork tiny helicopter that's constantly seeking out Da Vinci style intellects. like you're familiar as like, it's just with you to find someone better. Like
it's trying to like upgrade.
You're the rebound wizard.
Yeah, this is okay. So our friend, our Southern Belle, Cinerame, these are not the pets you're looking for. But these are the pets worth finding, I would say.
Absolutely. We want to thank Amy T. Falcone, creator of our social media branding and adorable chibi faces. You can check out Amy almost every day on the Twitcher, making amazing art. And she just runs a chill stream and is an awesome human being. And as well as Windswept for our song Never Stand Alone that we use as the intro and outro. Thanks for letting us use it, Windswept. You're awesome.
Also for people who are looking for, sorry, Air, I'm messing with this stuff.
Please go ahead.
Anyone who is looking for stuff for their own podcasts and things, to my understanding, as long as you're giving Windswept their credit, it is stuff that you can use. So check them out if you're looking for good music for your games or either online, offline, or whatever.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's an episode. So I'm going to say the thing. Thank you so much for listening and for listening to us answer your cues from our collective A's. This
was
Insight.
I think we've made a pod here, man.
I think we can put a bow on it.
I'm looking at the old syrup jug and it's darn near empty, right? The beavers have gone home into their dams. The polar bears are back in the melting ice caps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and if I don't get my syrup dose, I'm out just sucking on a tree all night. We can't have that. So